Hello again, viewers, and greetings, fellow space travelers. This is Thorn of Night, and welcome back to the Duck SMP on Performium blah, 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 slash Skyblock Network. I swear, English is my primary language. Anyway, I am back here at the domicile. I haven't really done anything in here yet because we have been reconfiguring the storage room uh, in order to lower this one level, but that isn't the reason why we needed to lower it one level. Turns out that not only was the chorus plant the root of a lot of the lag that was happening around here, but we had a lot of item frames with examples of what some of the chest contents were in here, and that maybe contributed a little. I took down a stack, exactly a stack worth by sheer happenstance throughout the base. And we still have a few. We have these, but there's five there, and there's some paintings. There's the one up there with my subscribe, and there's a couple in the house that are torch sconces. Nothing here. I'll go show. Do up here, and there we go. Nothing too terribly much. It's a carpet with a item frame in the same place that a torch exists. And there really aren't a lot of them. These are basically all that there are. I think there might be a couple. Yeah, there's a couple up one floor up. And maybe. No, none here. But what I did find out was beyond the item frames and the chorus plant, uh, apparently both chests and also signs contribute to frame drops. So I went through with the help of Cuddles, and we reduced. There's some chests missing in here, a little bit there, but mostly what we did is we reduced in here. We condensed things down, things that didn't have any items yet, or things that only had one full shulker in them. So we've got shulkers of concrete, full of concrete. We've got the incomplete shulkers and other storage in the first room there. But this whole place was completely full, not not only to here, but one layer up, all the way. One, two, three, four, five, six rows of double chests, all with signs, and it was just much. So what I'm still working on doing is figuring out what to do, how to condense things like that. I mean, there's some that we just can't get around. We've got a lot of cobblestone, and that's going to get used, but we have had to compress some things down. So here we have grass pods, all mycelium, and coarse dirt. And you can see that didn't need 4 dub chests. So I condensed it down to that. Here's glowstone, sea lanterns, and end rods. Didn't need 3 dub chests for that. As a matter of fact, don't even need a dub chest, just need a chest. But that's one of the things that's been going on here. Another thing that I have been doing is uh, we have made a chamber down here for building the root system and cave system for the giant fungi that's going to be getting built under the base. And then there's going to be a pathway that goes up and through and connects somehow to the base and then up to the ground up above. I have separate ideas in my head for how it's going to work, and it all is going to revolve around materials that we have access to. On the subject of gathering resources, I have planted some tree farms, and we have gone ahead and begun harvesting more spruce and dark oak because that is the pallet that's going to be getting used for the outer wall when I turn this into a big hollow stump. This is the pallet here. I'm probably going to take out this, might leave it in for some of the highlights, but basically you can see that there is variegation in the bark. It doesn't matter what kind of bark it is. They all have some variegation of tones and hues and stuff. And so I want to have a bit of a variety of blocks for making the bark that's going to go around the entire claim. I have, towards that pursuit, been needing to get some brown dye for the brown wool and the brown stained terracotta and the brown concrete. However, I am going to have to get a bunch of ink sacks because this is black stained terracotta and it looks brown. If I were to put, actually, let's go get some black concrete. If I were to put black concrete on top of the black stained terracotta, you can see the stark difference. So this is the concrete and this is the terracotta, and they're both black. But you can see, especially compared to the concrete, this is just brown. It's a very, very dark brown, and I'm going to be needing not just brown for the elements here, but also black. Thankfully, there is a squid spawner at spawn. I learned something in the pursuit of the brown dye. Well, first off, I had one row, 4 long and 4 tall. And I thought, this is going okay, but it's kind of slow. So I went ahead and made it twice as tall. And I thought, okay, this is better. If you wait for all of these to mature, so this one wouldn't drop the full amount, but the rest of these would. If you wait for all of these to mature, each cocoa bean or each cocoa pod will drop 3 beans. That's 1 for replanting and 2 to keep. So if you plant 100 cocoa beans, then after replanting, you get 200 cocoa beans, and that's 200 cocoa beans per harvest. Now, this is not going to be a complete harvest, but I do want to show off the method that I've put in here. I had to space it and time it with some additional delays over here to make it so that everything lines up right. I have put it in so that it harvests that way, and then after a delay, the signal goes up, and you can see at the top there's some pistons up there, and it pushes these pillars of jungle logs back down. So let's do this. And maybe you saw that at the top, the return journey pushes all 3 back down at the same time. It doesn't just do the one row because I didn't want to have to do a separate signal for each one. So I just brought in the signal from all 3 to here. But there was an intermediate step. And you can see that I got mostly a full harvest. I would expect to get 6 stacks out of one of those. Instead, I got just shy. I got 22 less than 6 stacks. And that's because not all of the pods were mature. Some of them were partially grown, and that's fine. But um, I wanted to increase the yield of the cocoa beans. And it's not because, let's see here, slash price. If I do that, it says that the item cannot be sold to the server. And the reason I did that is for things like cactus and cocoa beans and things that you can just set up massive farms that can produce lots of lag. They didn't want to encourage people to sell them. So instead, they disabled or they removed any sale price or they never even added one for the cocoa beans. So this is just strictly for me using for dye. But here's the thing. There is a system in place that detects when a whole bunch of items are falling at the same time in a small area. And it's not in a chunk because I've done experiments elsewhere. It is just, I don't know what the math is, what the parameters are, anything like that. All I know is when I had it so that all 3 of these ran at the same time, the first row would drop like this column, and then this column would drop cocoa beans. And then as soon as this one activated on all 3, every cocoa bean would vanish, and then from then on, the other two back here would also just produce thin air. And I thought, okay, maybe something was wrong. Maybe I am lagging. So I did it a couple of times, and basically, when I pushed the button, everything that dropped vanished. And I was trying to troubleshoot and figure out what was going on. So I disabled one of the rows, and it still happened. Like I would get a couple, I think it would be about 5 columns worth, so 3 would vanish, but still it wouldn't be a complete harvest. And so I was trying to figure out exactly what was going on, especially because the chunk borders were they aren't just like right here. There is no diagonal chunk border. So if this one had drops and this one didn't, then I just couldn't figure out what was going on. So what I did is I reduced it down, and I knew that one single row with the delay, you saw that there was that delay. It doesn't happen all at once. And even the movement doesn't happen all at once. I could very easily have made it just all go as a big wall of nonsense and just make a huge mess of the place, but I wanted to make sure it was paced. So one works just fine. And I figured if one works just fine, then I can just make 3 copies of one and do it that way. So that's what I did. But the return trip is it just uses the original single wave for pushing it back down, because pushing it back down doesn't make any difference whatsoever, especially if they're already down. So that's what's going on here. A little bit of a cocoa bean farm, nothing like what I've had in the past where it's walls and walls of this stuff, but it's still a a good source. And I don't know how much I'm going to need, so I'm probably going to target, I don't know, maybe 4 shulkers worth and then be done. And then if I need to get more later, I will still have this here. So this is what some of the stuff that we've got going on over here, or the stuff that I've got going on over here. It's working with the palette for that, but also I have another area that I'm working on, and I'll show you that in just a moment. I am out here at one of my other claims, and this is a fairly sizable one. Oh, okay, come on. There, target. Oh, I guess I could have targeted this. Yay. This is about 30,000 blocks. It is a large square. And what Cuddles and I have been doing is clearing this out, because this is where I'm going to be building, or maybe we are going to be building, a rather large volcano. But it's going to be more than just a volcano. The volcano is going to be pushing the water out of the way, and it's going to actually go about 4 times this distance in every direction. So this pillar here is the center of the claim, and the total radius of the area that I'm going to be working in is going to be uh, much farther than the edge of the claim. But because of what I'm doing with it, the area is going to be surrounded by a big void of water. There's going to be no water for probably about 350-ish blocks away from the center in every direction is a good enough distance. This here is the distance that you can see from any given point in this server. So building something too extraordinarily large, it's not going to be visible. So for instance, if I come over here, you can't even see the middle of the volcano. And then if I come over to here, you can't even see the claim. And this is not even all the way out from where I'm going to be building. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear the water out all the way to there in a big circle. And there's going to be a hand-built giant tsunami. It's probably going to only be about 4 or 5 blocks tall, but the glass of the tsunami is going to be built down at an angle into the water, delineating the actual water from the dry spot. It's effectively going to emulate a volcano having erupted very violently and causing a tsunami that pushes all the water out and away. I'm going to leave some puddles and things and have some water related things, maybe some, oh, I don't know, some whale bones or something down there, but nothing too terribly fancy. The main brunt of the build is going to be the volcano and the dragon skull and some other stuff. But what we've been doing is building these little slots and using sponges to empty out the water. The area that we're starting with is inside the claim for now so that uh, we have the base area for measuring how we're going to build a volcano and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the other projects that's going on. But I have a different idea in mind because there's one thing that I've been meaning to do that has been sort of on the back burner for a while that I promised to do as a thank you. And now that I have some of the time and resources to do it, I am going to get to work on that. And that is closer to Spawn. I'll be right back. Spawn has all of these gorgeous trees and this nice building behind it, and it is rather well put together. I will say that the render distance reduction does make it so it is unfortunate when you have to lose some of it to when you scoot back to try to get a good view, the rest of it vanishes, but you can still sort of imagine what it looks like. And it is really well put together, and there's all these attention to details and things, little heads that are piles of books. There's, here we go, some ales and some mugs, little chests and things. A lot of detail back here. And spawn is nice. The spawn itself is nice. And then you get outside the spawn claim and you've got, well, you've got the what's Bedrock Road or Spawn Road, whatever you want to call it here. I call it Bedrock Road because something all the way at the far end, the sign says this is the end of Bedrock Road, and there's just this little tiny patch of bedrock that isn't this assortment of blocks. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask around. Maybe this was bedrock, but that's irrelevant. There is a lot of gorgeous stuff and also a lot of gaudy stuff that you can find and goofy stuff that you can find at spawn. And a lot of it has a function, a lot doesn't. Some is just for decoration, which is a function by itself, and that's fine. There are some little statues and things, and some of them are really well done. Some of them are kind of goofy. Like this is very comedic and interestingly put together. But there's some good art here. There really is. Even if it's goofy, there's still a lot of work that's gone into it. And one of the players that used to play on here a lot that has effectively quit has decided that since I'm going to be taking up the mantle of starting to do some mega builds and things, that they wanted to just give me their claim here near spawn. So here we have already in existence this clock with an eagle on it, this guardian temple remnant thing-ish with a lava moat, this little bazaar down here, some shops, a little, uh, yeah, I can't remember the name of that. I used to know the name of that. Can't remember. If you remember, chastise me down in the comments. But there's a dragon head, all this kind of stuff. But what I was thinking was maybe right above here, on top of this building, make a secondary platform because this isn't really used for anything other than decoration anyway. Put a secondary platform and build a very specific and particular statue because the person who gave me access to this is Jam the Cookie King. And they said, here, take it, use it, do whatever you want with it. And that's lovely. And I said, well, I have an idea. As a way of saying thanks, what I could do is build a statue. And they said, I have an idea. To counter your idea, why don't you build a statue of jam jars? And I said, well, I have a counter idea. Why don't I build a statue of jam jars holding two cookies with king crowns on them? That way it's Cookie Kings because it's meant to be the Cookie King, but uh, there's a missing O, and that's okay. But oh, I never noticed that before. These are in the shape of chalices. That's a nice touch. I like that. Anyway, there's a lot going on here, but I think I need to add something to it. So today's project is going to be figuring out the skin of jam jars and then figuring out what I need to use to make it and then build jam jars here, right here above this on a platform. And ooh, what's this over here? Let me get distracted for a second. Oh, it's shambles. Okay. And then have jam jars in each hand holding some cookies, and the cookies have crowns on them. That way, it's jam jars with the king cookies instead of the cookie king. And that way, I can have that out of my to-do list and done with. Now, I would do a time lapse of this, but I have been informed that mods like Journey Map, any kind of mapping mods, the replay mod, anything like that, where you can get insights inside of structures that you're not supposed to be in, are disallowed because they quote give advantage on a server where there's claiming. Anyway, I can't do a time lapse on here, so I'm just going to get some materials, laid the platform, probably give you an update, and then start building, and then wrap things up when I'm done with the statue. So that's the plan for today. Let's get to it. A little bit of an update. I have begun to work on the body. Um, it occurs to me, I have not actually met this Jam Jars player, and I don't know if I have their exact current skin or not. So I'm going off of what namemc.com has as their skin. It's jamjars underscore, all one word, JAMJARS underscore. And this is the, well, this is half of what the image is that comes up for that player. If I have the wrong skin, I'm going to probably I ought to probably be embarrassed, but you know what? This is as good as I'm going to be able to get with the information that I have. So this is what I'm working on and working with. And this is the progress on the current task. I just thought I'd let you see what I've got going on here. It's not a whole lot, but I call it not much. Anyway, I'm going to get back to work. Figured I'd show the last few touches on this part of the project. I still have to add the cookies, but this is the last of the blocks that are going to be used for building the statue itself. And hopefully, this is a good and faithful representation of jam jars. I like it. All right, time for making cookies. Okay, now for the actual last touches. I wanted to add a little bit more embellishment to the cookies that are on here. Good, that works, and that goes there. And let's make this green and green to go with Jam the Cookie King's cookies on jam jars. Look at that, some chocolate chip cookies with crowns on them. Instead of a gem, I used another chocolate chip because I thought it was appropriate. And there we go, jam jars, hopefully. Now, if only I could figure out how to get this to jam jars without being a pest. Let him know this is here. Anyway, that's today's task. I'm happy with the way it turned out. It looks pretty okay. So we've got a little bit of discoloration back here because from the bottom the skull looks slightly brown but a little grayish, so I went with the dark oak logs. Ooh, some stuttering there. Uh, Behind the eyes, there's nothing behind the sunglasses. It is just a gap to make it so that the sunglasses don't have to be covering something useful. So that's just sunglasses and then an indentation there. So that's the skull there. The inside is entirely hollow. Oh, I keep changing chunks and it keeps causing me to stutter. I'm just going to stand still. Yeah, there we go. Different kinds of uh, greens. We've got the terracotta, the concrete, and the wool. Uh, the buttons up top, or the insignia, or whatever that is on the hat, that is just some yellow wool, nothing fancy. And oh, I said I was going to hold still, but I lied. I think it's loading whatever that is at the bottom. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. And that is today's project done for Jam the Cookie King, who is the person that has passed this claim on to me, so to speak. And they have requested some Cookie Kings being held by Jamjars. Yeah, that was fun. But that's also going to bring it to the end of the episode today. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please give a like. I do appreciate it and it helps. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I am trying to continue to grow my channel, and hopefully your subscription will help me get to that first goal of 2,000 that I'm trying to reach. So do please subscribe. And if you do, thank you. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you once again for watching. This is Thorn of Night, and I will talk to you later.